So today for class, I wanted to go over the 3 rows of the border. And then I also wanted to show you how I am tackling ends. I've done ends on one side, but not this side yet. But I'm finding the end weaving a little meditative as well, which is nice. And then I was also going to show you an easy way to make tassels. So if there's anything else you want me to cover or come up with, or you have questions, let me know. But those were the three parts I wanted to cover today. So let me get all the pieces and parts here. Pattern out. So just so you know, I have done my scissors. I've done 3 repeats of the pattern. So repeat 1, 2, and 3. You can continue to repeat until it's the size you want. You just need to make sure you end with row 26 so that the border stitches, that's assuming you want to do a border. You don't have to, but the border stitches will work out with attaching to row 26. I also want to make sure people know that on the Miho Crochet website, and I think we talked about this early on, that she has I should start sharing my camera here. That'd be easier. Let's do it. She does have, she gives you stitch counts when you're going through it the first time, but then somebody went through and made a stitch count sheet for if you're doing the 3rd repeat of the pattern, the 4th repeat, 5th, 6th, all the way through. You could do up to 8 repeats. And she also has stitch counts here for the border reminds you that you need to end with row 26. So this was really helpful to have. Just, I could quick count how many popcorns I was supposed to have, or how many spaces I was supposed to have as I was working across to make sure that I was making it work out correctly. So that's on the page when you click on before you click on the pattern. It's there. Okay, border. So the border is 3 rows, and it's very similar to what we've been doing. It's got a couple extra little tricks in there. So the border does start on the wrong side, row 1 of the border. Let me get over here, which I've already done because I wanted to get a little bit ahead, but I will describe what we have done here. It's just a hair above it. So row 26 has you finishing on the right side and making these popcorns and back post double crochet stitches. And then row 1 of the border has you doing a familiar theme where you put 2 doubles into a stitch with a chain 2 in between to have these little V's. But in between those, where previously we had just made those going across, we have a chain 5. So our repeat here is to chain 3, which counts as a double, and then to do a chain 2 and another double. Nope, I'm sorry, chain 4 and another double in the first one right here. And then we chain 5, and then we put, there we go. We put a double, a chain 2, and a double all in the top of the popcorn stitch. So you kind of have to flip it up just a little bit to see. And then that's your repeat. So a double, a chain two, and a double, and then chain five. So you're putting that little V that we are familiar with on top of all of the popcorn stitches, all the way up. To your very last popcorn. And then you chain five and make your center. And then you work your way back down, going into the popcorn, all the way down. Ending with a chain. We do make the little V into the popcorn, and then you do a chain five and a double chain one and a double in the third chain from the previous row. Don't worry that these little chain fives are going to be a little floppy. Those are going to get taken care of in the next row. I'm sorry, in row three. So then row two, we're back on the right side. and I was like, oh, I know what I'm doing. So, I 8 double crochets. This is a familiar thing. I'm doing 8 double crochets. Well, I started putting it in the chain five, but that, lo and behold, that is wrong. You need to put those in the same place we had been putting them. And what ends up happening is that chain five just ends up kind of laying against the curve between the two. So row two is you start with a chain three, and we put one double in the first, and then we have that chain one space right here that we've left, and we put 4 doubles in there. And then we put 8 doubles in the next chain two space, not chain five space, but chain two space. So the only one that seems a little floppy is this one here, but I feel like it's going to get taken care of in the next row. So that's going to go all the way. And as I started to do it, and I only got this far this morning in class, but that it's just going to make another little outline between those 8 double crochets in the chain two spaces. So what I'm going to do here to speed things along, what's one more end to weave in, right? Cut my yarn. Let's get to the other end here. We'll pretend I got there. Eight doubles. And we'll just pretend I got to the end of the row here. Two, three. 5, 6, 7, 8. Skip that chain 5 and we end row 2. 4 doubles in the next chain one space, which was between our chain 3 and that double. We put 4 doubles in there. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we finish with 2 doubles in the third chain. And 2. Okay. So I got in the habit, I don't know if anybody else did who's changing colors. I just moving on to here's my next color. Is I just started doing my final yarn over with my new color. Right. And then just kind of holding the two ends together and then starting my new row. And I like to chain before I turn. So row 3, she says, if you don't want tassels on your shawl, you can make picots in the corners of your shawl instead of chains and slip stitches. So just know that you can do that. Let's see here. I wish I would have read this ahead. Hold on. I'm just going to do it the way she did. Okay. So we're going to chain 6. Six. Turn. So I'm back to the wrong side here. All right. So we're going to do one single in the first double. And right there, that's what makes your little picot. There's these extra chains. And then one slip stitch in the front loop only of the next 4. So we're going to slip stitch in the front loop only. It shouldn't be there we go. Front loop only slip stitch. 1. Don't slip stitch tight. 2. 3. And 4. Skip a double. So I had one more double here. I'm going to skip. I'm going to do a single picot with 2 chains and 1 single between the 2 groups where, oh, so I needed to go over. Really should have made one more. Well, we'll make it here. Okay. So we're going to do, skip that one, and we're going to do a single picot with 2 chains and a single in the worked around row 1. I'm just looking at the picture to make sure I'm doing this right. Yep. Okay. So we want to, this is where we're going to catch that chain 5 that we have. So we're going to do a single, and this time we're going around all of it. Instead of trying to stay in front, we're going around all of it. So a single, chain 2, that's what makes the picot, and another single. I'm gonna make that second single a little more snug. And then we're going to skip one double and slip stitch of the next 6. So we'll skip this one and slip stitch. One, front loop only. It's such a nice little detail. Okay. So you skip the first and the last of these 8 double crochets. There we go. And then in between them, you got, anytime you make a stitch and then chain up and then go back and make a stitch or a slip stitch again, the little chain part that curls back down is what's called the picot. Excuse me. So you've got this little single with a 2 chain picot and a single in between. Looks like a little crown that goes all the way around. So you would continue that all the way, around. And that's your border, but you can see how it brings up that chain 5 that we skipped. If I come over here, not on wrong side. So you start the border on the wrong side and you finish the border on the wrong side. So let's do a single, chain 2 picot, and a single, and then skip the first double, and then slip stitch across the 6, and you skip the last one. So this is nice when you have accidentally made the wrong number of doubles in between. Just skip the first and the last. And then another double, but single, going over that chain 5, make your single, chain 2, and another single. And skip the first. And that makes such a nice detail. Do make sure though that when you're doing your slip stitches, you're not pulling it tight, because you still want this to have a little give and really mimic the stitch that's there. If you want to add a little more drama, who doesn't love a little more drama, you could make this a chain 3 picot, a chain 4 picot. Let's see here what happens. Let's do 3. And that would just make it stand up. There you go. So it just gives it a little extra poof as compared to the, totally up to you. It can be as flairful or unflared as you want. And then when you flip it over to the right side, what you get is this little, it almost looks like a back stitch, a back post stitch, but it's just coming through the top of the stitches, which looks very nice. And that's your last row for your border. Are there any questions about the border? Okay, before I move this to the side, I'm going to show you how I've been treating my ends. So this side, let's zoom out just a little. I got most of my ends dealt with on this side. And I did do, I'm going to turn it to the wrong side. And I did, you really can't see where I wove any of them away. That I think is one of the advantages of crochet over knitting. I think it's much easier to hide your ends. The stitches have so much more texture It's just easier to hide them away. So let me show you, just give you an example here. So I told you that I was, as I was finishing each row and changing colors, I would just do my last yarn over with my new color, and that would leave the two ends, the end of one row and the beginning of another row, those ends. So I would take that pair, I apologize, I'm losing my voice again. And I tidied them up a little, pulled them together just to make nothing that looked too loose. I didn't want anything to pucker, but I didn't want anything really loose. And once I felt like that was in a good spot with my darning needle, let's there we go. I tried to weave away, and this one I wove away and just didn't trim. I would try to weave it away in its same color, because then you really can't see it. Go underneath a few stitches there. And I think one of the secrets to weaving away ends is to not go in a straight line. So then I would catch, and the nice part about it being a textured stitch and the same color is I could pull it through and you really can't see where it is. And then let's go this way. By going different directions, the yarn would really have to get pulled. I'm going to turn this around. You would have to get pulled in a variety of directions for the end to really pop out. Now let's go underneath this purple here and come up and go that way. And I feel like, I think I was doing roughly 2 inches, maybe 3 inches, depending on how much of a tail I left myself. And I'm just using not a sharp needle. A round tip is just fine because I don't need to split the threads, although you could. But I feel like with this, it was really pretty easy. When your tail gets too short, run your needle in first and then thread it. And that gets you a little further with a short tail. You can't look at the screen because I really need it. Okay. With being sick, all I've done is wash my hands. They're so dry. And pull it through. And then once I've gone a little bit, I do a little bit of this, which just kind of redistributes it and pulls it out a little bit. I made sure from the front that I wasn't covering anything or changing anything. And then let's just do a couple more. And then I feel like it's good. Enough that, if a little end were to pop out, like I've got, and that's just fuzz. Where's that in? So I've got a little end here from who knows what. Maybe I have a little knot in my yarn. Trim it close. And then let it kind of get absorbed back in. But if you do get a little end that pops up, there we go. I'm just going to trim and then let it get pulled back in. and it's gone. So it's a little tedious, but I feel like it's pretty easy. I started to do them after I finished a row or two. I'd go in and make myself weave in a couple of rows because I want to have this done. This is good TV watching. A good TV watching project is weaving in ends. And then after I block it, I'll double check that no little ends have popped out. Some people like to block it first. With this, I really wanted, because I knew I had loose, the way I changed my color, I knew that some of this was loose, and I didn't want it to dry in a stretched out or a loose form. I wanted this to be tidied up first. So that's why I chose to weave in before I block. Other times I might, if I know I'm going to have a little bit of trouble, or I'm afraid my ends are going to pop out, or it's going to be hard to hide the ends, then I might block first so I can really see what I'm dealing with. So you can do it either way. And that's how I dealt with the ends. Any questions about weaving away your ends? So one of the things I really loved about this pattern were the tassels. I think they're so cute. And I love a good tassel. So we have a tassel maker, which you can absolutely use, and I would love to sell you, but I'm going to show you how you don't have to do that. I think a book is good, and I just happen to have A Good Yarn by Debbie Maycomer. We get a lot of yarn books here. People bring them in because they think we're going to read them. I happen to have read this one, but all right. So my tassel is going to be, I want it to be multicolor. So I'm going to make a big old mess here. And I'm going to lay my yarns. Really want more of this dark, bright purple. And you can do this for any size tassel. The nice thing about the little tassel maker is that you can adjust the size of them. So you can predetermine the size that you need. And it's got little holders on the side where it'll hold the ends of your yarn and all those good things. Get some pieces here. I'm just going to do this a little more so I can show you. Let's use this. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this around the book. The length of the book will determine how big your tassel is. So I'm going to wrap this several times, but if I wrap it just once, let's see here. And you always want to leave room for trimming the tassel. Okay, so this is one wrap around. Know that we're going to fold this in half. So my tassel is going to be, for a book this size, roughly half the length. So if you want a bigger tassel, wrap it, and you can use a piece of cardboard, a notebook, anything to wrap around. But half the length is what you're going to get for the length of your tassel. Okay. So the number of times you wrap around determines how fluffy or poofy your tassel is. Just like when you're making a pom-pom. All right, so I'm gonna wrap 3. Let's see how many I can get before I get a huge tangled mess. Because I'm using so many colors. Or got pretty far. Okay, we're gonna stop there because that could go on forever. Okay, so I do want to cut my yarn at the same end where my beginning start is. Let's see if I can get one more wrap. There we go. Okay, and then I'm gonna get my hand underneath all the loops and slide it off your book, your notebook, whatever it is you're making. So I've got my beginning and end is all at one end, and I've got a loop. Now I need to cut, and this could be with a different color, a contrasting color, a completely different yarn. I need to cut a piece of yarn to tie it and then to wrap the top in. So I need 2 pieces. I'm going to do them both in this bright purple. And I would say be generous because it's just be generous with your yarn. I mean, that's plenty. And I'm going to put a link. I found a really great tassel making video on YouTube that I will put a link to. She's doing the same thing that I'm doing here. All right, so now I have to remind myself. This one, I'm going to tie it first. And I'm going to tie it fairly, pretty snug with just an overhand knot. So you don't want to use a yarn that is easily going to pull apart for tying this. Yep, and I don't want to mix up my loop. There we go. Okay. Now, I want to make sure I'm doing this right. Hold on 1 second. Because in my head, that was right. We're just going to pause the recording because I'm going to. Okay, where I have, let's go back to screen sharing. Thank you for my pause. So I tied it in the center here. I'm going to cut. And I've got it tied roughly in the center. Okay. Then I'm going to fold it in half. And I'm going to take my second piece, and this one I cut a little bit longer. Now you can see it. I don't know. I'll have to see how this is. I think this was 6 wraps around my book with 6 different yarns. So, but then it gets doubled. So keep that in mind. I want to keep those ends that I tied it with up at the top because that's what I'm going to attach it to my shawl with. Then I have to make the little crown part here. Whoops, sorry, hit the camera. There we go. Okay, so I've got a longer piece here. And this is where we're going to make the little bold part at the top. So how far down you come is really up to you. Um, I'd say maybe 3/4 of an inch to an inch. And I've got a longish piece of yarn here. And here's why I want this one a little longer. Because I'm going to go ahead and tie it in a knot again. So I'm going to futz with it just a little bit at first. That's where I want it to be. And then tie it again. Okay, and then to make it look nice and decorative, let's see, just a minute. I'm going to take, I'm going to leave those there. I'm going to take one of these strands and I'm going to wrap it around. It's probably easier to turn the tassel. And I'm wrapping fairly snugly. A couple of times that way. And then I'm going to take my crochet hook. I'm going to come up underneath some of those wraps, grab my end. You can. And pull it through. And that's what really helps secure that in place. You can do that a couple of times. I think I'll go to this side. I might have to use a smaller hook. Let's see if I've got one here. I do have one here. A little handy tool. What you can also do is kind of come through the tassel. Grab that end. Hopefully just the end. I might have wrapped it too tight. Okay. And then I can either trim it or I can just pull it into the center here. Then I want to do the same thing with the other side of the yarn that I had tied the knot with. So I'm going to wrap it. So this is where using something different or decorative could be fun, depending on what you're making a tassel for. And that's what's going to kind of make it hold its shape. And that. There we go. And then when you can play with your strands here a little, you can make them fluffier if you want. Play with the shape a little bit. So this is made quite a long pom-pom. I'm sorry, tassel, excuse me. And then the fun part comes where you get to trim it. You're taking the back of your hook, you can kind of comb it out a little. And then depending on how long you want it to be. Sharp scissors here will do the job. And you've got a nice, even, very secure tassel that you can then tie on. So if we so if I were to put that here, so once that's all done, I can secure it right there. You can make them smaller. You could put tiny tassels. I've seen shawls with tiny tassels, but I think I'll end up putting one at each corner. But a really easy way to make a nice tassel. This is nice and tight and secure, particularly if you're using a cotton yarn. Again, don't use a yarn to do your tying that easily pulls apart. Use something a little stronger, and you'll get a nice fluffy tassel. Are there questions about tassel making? You guys are so good. I think that's going to be so cute. Amy, are you going to put tassels on yours? I put her on the spot. Now she has to find her unmute.
Exactly. I use Teams all day at work.
Yeah.
Zoom, not so much. I don't know.
So the nice thing is if you've got the yarn, you can make one and see if you like it. I mean, it's easy to put on, take off.
The problem is we have a little dog.
Oh, yeah, that's just a chew toy waiting.
Yeah. So if I was wearing it and she saw the tassel, she would be quite certain that that meant it was a new dog toy.
Yes. And in my house, the pattern is the dog toy. I can't tell you how many patterns, and Agatha's seen this on Zoom. Like I'll get up to do something, and all of a sudden I'll hear everybody on Zoom yelling, Herschel, put it down, because he's come over and walked off with my paddle.
Just the pattern, nothing else.
Nothing else. He just, yeah, he leaves the yarn alone, just likes the paper. So, like little earrings. That'd be a cute little necklace. Tassels are fun. I like the ornaments. I like a little sequin. I like a little fluff. I like a pom-pom. I like a tassel. I like a ruffle. I like all the girly things.
If I go to the trouble of making a tassel, I might do a beaded tassel.
I think that would be great. You could
Some
also
little beads
do,
on the bottoms.
right, you could also do, if you held, instead of just one strand to do the tying part, you could make a braid or then twist it and have a really cool twisted cord as well to tie it on with. So you can make them very ornate or complicated or not, but I'll put the link to this video. It's just the basic steps of what to do for tassel making. So I'll add that to the page. So
will come in handy. I might actually use the tassel maker that I have.
see, there you go. And I when I came over to the side, I didn't grab. I'm like, oh, I have a tassel maker over there, but I didn't want to be late. So the nice thing about that is you can adjust the size, especially if you have to make many tassels and you need them the same size, because then you're not wasting yarn. You know, if you've only got a book, but you're going to be cutting off, a ton of yarn, then, I mean, if you're going to be wasting this much yarn, I mean, if you know how, it'll tell you this is how long your tassel will be. So if I know I want a 4-inch tassel, you can set it up that way and it's already done for you. So it does help you conserve a little bit of yarn that way. But I work in a yarn shop, so I've got yarn.
I
like gadgets.
a yarn shop. I feel like I own a yarn shop. Not quite to
Yeah.
Kim's, not quite to Kim's level, but
I know it.
good Lord.